therapist, Kristen Jacobson.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist, and today I want to talk about OCD, or obsessive-compulsive disorder. And this is something that I have personal experience with. So when I was about 11 or 12, my parents got divorced, and so I went into this phase of constant hand washing and being unable to touch things with my hands for fear of getting germs on them. So I would wash my hands several times a day. I would have to count the number of steps that I was taking in a certain room to make sure it was an even number. I would turn off light switches with my elbow instead of using my hand. So all of these are compulsive behaviors that are related to whatever I was feeling internally, which is anxiety, related to my parents' divorce. Now, this was the early 90s, so, Dr. Google didn't exist. Mental health resources weren't really readily available, so I don't think anybody really knew what was going on with me. We just kind of chalked it up to this quirky behavior. But now, having studied psychology and the various disorders, this was very clearly OCD. So today I want to talk about a different form of OCD, and this is called pure O OCD. So the focus is more on the obsessive thoughts. And while we think of traditional OCD as having compulsions that are more behavioral, like I said, the hand washing or, not being able to touch things out of fear of contamination, pure O OCD is all mental. So we have these obsessive or intrusive thoughts, and then we perform these mental rituals that we use to kind of manage that anxiety that we're experiencing from those intrusive thoughts. So unlike the more commonly recognized form of OCD, like I said, that involves those repetitive behaviors, pure O has these mental rituals. So people experience distressing, intrusive thoughts without those outward compulsions that are associated with traditional OCD. So some people get confused because they hear pure O and they think that it's only the obsessions or the intrusive thoughts, but that's not entirely true. The compulsions are very present, they're just mental. These intrusive thoughts that people with pure O experience tend to be about harm, violence, different taboo subjects, or unwanted sexual thoughts. And these thoughts are not in line with their own personal beliefs or morals. And so this is what makes them particularly distressing. For example, I had a client who experienced intrusive thoughts about harming his niece, even though he would never act on such a thought. And the intensity and frequency of these thoughts can really create a significant amount of anxiety and distress. And they're so disturbing to people because they're really completely opposite to the person's values and morals. So you might not have a violent bone in your body and be the kindest person, but you're having these intrusive thoughts about harming people that are just so disconnected to sort of who you truly are. And so this discrepancy really creates these heightened levels of fear and self-doubt. And then our brain's natural response to that stress is to try to neutralize or mitigate that threat, which is where those compulsions or those mental rituals come into play. These rituals can include mentally checking things or reviewing past actions, seeking reassurance, silently repeating certain phrases or prayers, whatever the person does repeatedly to try to calm down that anxiety associated with the intrusive thoughts. But these mental rituals serve as a temporary relief in the moment, but what they actually do is they reinforce this obsessive cycle, making the thoughts and rituals more persistent. So pure O OCD is often misunderstood because a lot of times it can be mistaken for anxiety due to the intense distress that it causes. But it's distinct because of those specific intrusive thoughts and mental rituals. And so this misunderstanding means that more traditional anxiety treatments aren't necessarily going to be effective to treat pure O OCD. So the confusion arises because both generalized anxiety and pure O have these high levels of anxiety, and they can coexist together. But the core of Pure O is the obsessive-compulsive cycle. So you have an intrusive thought. This triggers a mental ritual meant to neutralize the perceived threat. And traditional anxiety treatments don't specifically target that cycle. And that's why there's some limited effectiveness in that. So to understand why Pure O OCD happens, we have to look at the brain, right? And Pure O involves a dysfunction in a brain circuit loop, which is responsible for filtering thoughts and controlling behaviors. So in individuals with OCD or Pure O, this loop doesn't function properly. And so this leads to the intrusive thoughts and then the need to perform those mental rituals or compulsions to alleviate that distress. Additionally, neurotransmitters like serotonin play a role. Serotonin is involved in our mood regulation and anxiety. So people with OCD have experienced lower levels of serotonin. And that's why some medications that increase serotonin levels can be effective in treating OCD symptoms. So the gold standard for treating Pure O, and really all forms of OCD, but we're talking about Pure O in this instance, is exposure and response prevention, ERP. And this involves facing fears and reducing mental rituals. So this might mean deliberately bringing on an intrusive thought and then refraining from engaging in the mental ritual that follows. And so somebody who's specially trained in ERP can really fit the treatment to the unique needs of somebody who's experiencing Pure O. And so it works by breaking the cycle of obsession and compulsion. And when you expose yourself to that fear without performing the mental ritual, the person learns that the anxiety will eventually dissipate on its own. And so over time, this process helps to reduce the power and frequency of those intrusive thoughts. As I mentioned, sometimes medication can help, particularly an SSRI that works on the serotonin in our brains. But medications are typically used in conjunction with therapy to provide a comprehensive approach to managing symptoms. Techniques like acceptance and commitment therapy and mindfulness can be very effective for Pure O. This approach helps individuals observe their thoughts without judgment, and in turn, that reduces the power that intrusive thoughts have over them. And mindfulness practices can create sort of a distance from the thoughts, making them feel less overwhelming. In acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, people are encouraged to accept their intrusive thoughts rather than fighting them. And so this acceptance reduces that compulsive need to sort of neutralize them with the mental rituals, and it sort of disrupts that obsessive compulsive cycle. There's also something called Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation, or TMS. I know that's a mouthful, but this is an emerging treatment for OCD that offers a non-invasive approach. So TMS uses magnetic fields to stimulate nerve cells in the brain and targets the areas involved in obsessive compulsive behaviors and intrusive thoughts. So the person wears something over their head and these magnets stimulate the brain, and it can really help to reduce the intensity and frequency of those intrusive thoughts and mental rituals. And this type of treatment can be especially beneficial for people who have not really responded well to traditional treatments like medication and psychotherapy. It's more well known for treatment-resistant depression, but it's also being used now for OCD. And, it's really important to build strong support networks. So seeking out support from family and friends, or finding a support group with others who have similar experiences can really provide a lot of validation and create this sense of community and understanding that's really invaluable. So it can really help reduce feelings of isolation and stigma. So I just want to provide a few examples of how Pure O OCD might show up. So the first is harm obsessions. So these would be repeated unwanted thoughts about accidentally or intentionally harming others, like worrying about hurting a loved one, even though in your core you would never act on it. So the mental ritual might be mentally reviewing actions to ensure that no harm was caused. Number 2 is sexual obsessions. So this could be intrusive thoughts about inappropriate or unwanted sexual behavior, such as fears of being attracted to someone inappropriate. And the mental rituals involved would maybe be mentally checking or analyzing one's thoughts and feelings over and over again. There are also religious or moral obsessions. So these could be intrusive thoughts about sinning or not being devout enough. And so the mental rituals can include silent prayers or mental reassurance that they're a good person. There can also be health obsessions. So this could be a persistent fear about having a serious illness despite medical reassurance. And so mental rituals would include constantly checking for symptoms and seeking excessive medical information. And then finally, we have relationship obsessions. So this could include doubts about the strength or fidelity of relationships, worrying constantly about whether they truly love their partner. And so mental rituals might include repeatedly analyzing feelings or past interactions for proof of this. So living with pure O can be incredibly challenging, but I think just understanding what it is and how it works is really the first step toward managing it, because this silent battle in your mind might not be visible to others, but it's very real and it's very distressing. So I encourage you, if this is something that you are experiencing, to reach out for support and maybe find a provider who specializes in ERP or acceptance and commitment therapy or TMS. And again, just be sure that you are utilizing your support network and getting the treatment that you need. So I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear your feedback if you've ever experienced any pure O OCD. I think it's a lot more common than people think. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next week.